Hello everyone and welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is Women's Grandmaster Sabina Foysher from Chess Evolved Academy, which is an online academy that I co-founded, and besides the lessons that we teach together with Grandmaster Elshan Moradiabadi, we also organize weekly tournaments. You can read more about it on our website, and we certainly hope you give us a follow if you enjoy our YouTube videos, but also just follow us to stay tuned with the different events that we organize online or in person. For today, we picked another game that was played between a rated bot and Rob. Actually, a rated bot is the one who submitted this game. You might see Rob. I've seen a previous game of his that he won, but this game was submitted by a rated bot, and Rob started with e4 and e5 was the response, knight f3, knight c6. Here there are many options that white can play. In this particular game, bishop b5 was played, but there, like I said, a few other options. d4 would be scotch. Over here, we also can play bishop c4, which is the Italian. Lots of other choices for white, but this game had bishop b5. The idea of this move is basically to just put pressure on the knight so that you get the chance to take that pawn. Pretty normal and straightforward, I would say, but white is not really threatening that yet, because after the capture, pawn takes, and white takes the pawn in e5. Black has this move queen d4 where it attacks both the knight and the pawn. Queen e7 also works, attacking the knight. When the knight moves, that pawn will be captured. So this is the reason why black typically says, go away bishop, feel free to take the knight if you want. I know I'm not going to lose the pawn. So this is the most usual move that's being played here. Knight f6 was quite popular in the match between Kasparov and Kramnik. Berlin defense, and f5 is something that I've seen some of my students play here. This is called the Schliemann defense. It's kind of a king's gambit with reverse colors. It's an opening that's actually discussed in a couple Chessable courses. If you're interested, you certainly can check it out. But I think a6, oh, by the way, there's d6 as well, which is the Steinitz defense. So you have a few options here with black, but I think this is definitely the most popular one. And usually white responds with bishop a4. In this particular game, however, Rob captured the knight. So normally you don't want to give up a bishop for the knight, but the idea here is that you're messing up black's pawn structure, and you might find it a bit strange that black captures like this, but as I mentioned, we need to open up the queen so that we can get the pawn back. This move would be the more natural approach, but it tends to not give black a very good pawn structure, because since that pawn is under attack, you will have to play d6, not having the option to go d5, and because of that, people tend to capture like this. So d takes c6, white castles. And now in this position, a rated bot played the move bishop d6, which I think it's pretty okay to play. The main line is f6. We've seen this in the previous video. This move f6 weakens this diagonal and this one, but when you don't have a light square bishop that can attack, or the queen that can go to h5 anytime soon, you might be fine to push this pawn. I personally really enjoy this move, bishop g4. So if you're more of an attacking player and you want to set up a trap to your opponent, you can consider playing here, because you're pinning the knight, and if they chase the bishop away, no, you're not going to move it back, and no, you're not going to capture the knight. You're going to play this move h5 to protect your bishop, hoping that your opponent would capture, but the idea is that you recapture to chase this knight away. Don't you dare move it, mister, because if you do, let's just say capture this pawn, then black is going to play queen h4, and with the h file opened, black is certainly going to take advantage of your weak king and checkmate you. So if white makes the mistake to capture, now they actually have to give up the knight, but if that knight falls, the queen certainly will come there. Black can consider castling long and will have a very pleasant position. So this move h5 is pretty nice. Now, if you ever choose to play this, you need to study and check out a few games, because white develops, for example, they play d3, let's say, some point they're going to protect their knight and they might actually threaten to take your bishop. So you need to know exactly what to play. For example, here, queen f6 is an important move to remember. And if they play the move knight d2, for example, then you want to know to bring out your knight, and your knight is going to come g6. If white continues by playing knight c4 to put pressure in the center, for example, this may be the right moment for you to take out that knight, because they might threaten to take in g4. And after the trade, you get a pretty comfortable position. I would go knight g6 probably here to protect the pawn. And certainly after that, you got to figure out how you're going to place your pieces. But you don't need to castle anymore. You can actually keep your king in the center. You might go c5. This bishop it's a bit tricky where you're going to put it, actually, maybe d6. But I think that white's pawn structure, it's not really so great. So it's quite a favorable position for black, despite not having a good bishop, because white also doesn't have the opportunity to open up the position. So bishop g4 could be an interesting alternative. But there's nothing wrong with bishop d6, because you're kind of waiting for white to play d4. And when they do that, your bishop will get opened. So white played h3, which stops the move bishop g4. And black responded with knight f6. I think it's still pretty nice. Both players are developing their pieces. There was an attack in e4, knight c3, and now this move, bishop e6, was played. So I think so far both players have done natural moves. They might not have been familiar with something very fancy in the opening, but they certainly played some pretty good moves. And now rook e1, and black castled. Now, white needs to figure out where to develop the bishop, and I found it quite nice, the move that white played, which is d4. So he's opening up the bishop, gaining some space, I mean, putting pressure in the center, all looks good. But when you capture here with black, you really need to remember that you have placed your bishop in d6, and you're standing on this fork. You don't want to know how many times I've seen my students fall for this fork idea. You have to be very cautious. You actually could have played the move knight to d7, cover the pawn, let them capture, you take back with the knight. If they don't capture, you can just hold on the tension in the center, because, you know, if you capture, you're helping them get the knight in the center maybe. But this way you can go rook e8, maybe you can get this queen out, you know, you just hold on with the position there. They can't go d5 because you got that covered. You'll trade your double pawn. So this could be a pretty nice move, I would say, for black, followed by maybe queen e7, rook d8, something like this I would envision for black. Now e takes d4 is not too bad, but what followed was a bit devastating for black. So after knight captures in d4, basically, as I mentioned, this is a threat. White couldn't have played it now, because if you do this, and what's going to happen? Capture this knight, they can take one of our minor pieces. Let's just say they'll take our bishop. And then what do we do with black? We can take in b2, or we can take here. Let's just say they trade back, then they trade. And if you look at the pawn structure, you can definitely tell that black's pawn structure is back to normal. White's is pretty bad. And of course, black is up a pawn, because we ended up capturing one when we took four, and then we took one here. So that move was not possible. That's why white captured with the knight. So far, everything good. But it is in this position that black forgot to look for his opponent's threat. Big lesson for you guys is that you need to look for threats for your opponent every single move, even threats that were before, the threats that were the move before. It's very easy to forget about them, but you need to try to remember about it. So now e5 is the threat, and black needs to either move the knight or move the bishop. Maybe bishop e5 was an option, but then you need to be careful, because this could be a thing. The good thing about the position, sorry, I keep using the word thing, but this bishop can capture one of the knights, shall it move at some point, and that way you will avoid getting forked. Instead of this, black made a huge blunder, rook e8, forgetting about the threat, and now it's gonna be really, really difficult as white is playing e5, and Rob did indeed play e5, didn't miss the chance to win the piece, and unfortunately for black, this is just devastating. He tried to play on a bit more, but there's no way for him to survive with a piece down. And now after rook takes, even bishop g5 was played, and now black is gonna lose even more material. So he should have considered maybe trade here first and then capture. That would have avoided, you know, losing even more material. So that's what you should try to do in situations where you're worse. But unfortunately for a rated bot, it was kind of again over for him after this, and I think we can stop here with the game because the rest was just a matter of technique to win with an extra piece. So I hope this game analysis has been helpful to you. You had something to learn, and don't forget to give us a like if you enjoyed this video, leave us a comment, and subscribe if you want us to post more of these videos. Bye now.